So, what exactly do you mean when you say, what do you mean?
I do not understand this. This really confuses me.
What's that supposed to mean?
Literally.
What's that supposed to mean?
What's that supposed to mean?
I don't know what you're talking about.
What are you talking about?
What's that supposed to mean?
Cultural anthropologist Ujwal Kalgood and Motive Base president Jason Partridge will tell you that perception and meaning are the primary pressure points that shape and create the world we live in.
Inconceivable! You keep using that word.
Let's explore why meaning matters.
I don't think it means what you think it means.
Now, here's your host, Aaron Trafford.
Well, hello. Here we are again for Why Meaning Matters. This is the show that helps your organization navigate the ever-changing world of meaning. And each and every episode, we try to uncover insights and explain some of the nuances that are going on at the cultural level to help you and your company make better decisions when it comes to what you're talking about, how you're marketing it, and who you are talking to and how. And over the course of this season, we're on episode 6 now here in season 2, but also in season 1, we have been unpacking shifts in culture and meaning at various levels. We have talked about big things: race, gender, equality, feminism. We've tackled some seemingly more niche topics like skin health, comic book characters, home decor, but all at this cultural level, and talking about how this can really help you understand and direct where you are going with your products and services, campaigns, and marketing. But today, I think we need to tackle the topic almost to end all topics. And 9-year-old boys everywhere are giggling their faces off right now, because today we need to talk about cows, and we need to talk about cow farts and the changing meaning.
That's right.
Of a cow fart.
Every podcast needs a flatulence episode.
and I say this in jest because it's hilarious and we can make light of it. But there's something here, guys, that we need to talk about, because I'll be honest, up until a few years ago, I never once gave any thought to whether cows farted, what a cow fart did, what it meant to me. But now I feel like when someone talks about cow farts, I know that they're talking about methane, and I know that they're talking about climate change.
You know, I'm just thinking about somebody who's tuning into our podcast for the first time, and they just happen to start with this episode. And they're probably so confused right now.
Sometimes we're super serious. But most of the time we're having fun. But this is one of those things that is it's like a canary in a coal mine, right?
That's right.
The fact that we know what cow farts mean.
Yeah, well, let me start with this piece. You know, for the last couple of years, we've all been told, hey, grass-fed, grass-fed, grass-fed. Grass-fed beef, grass-fed milk, this, that. It tastes better. It's better for the environment. These cows are supposedly happier. It's better for their digestion. At least that's what I've been sold myself as a consumer. I'm not speaking as a researcher, just as a consumer, to the point where we pay a hefty premium. I pay a hefty premium at the local butcher, pay a hefty premium at the grocery store to get grass-fed beef or grass-fed whatever from the cow. Now suddenly we do research looking at methane production in the dairy industry, and lo and behold, we discover that actually, as it turns out, the cow's digestive system is a huge contributor to methane gas production, which is obviously a huge problem because of how much we farm cows and the dairy industry and the meat industry. It's a huge problem from an environmental justice and environmental climate change standpoint. And what we're now suddenly discovering is, turns out a grass diet actually promotes methane gas production. So if you're one of those people that's trying to be environmentally sustainable, suddenly one discovers that, hey, all this symbolic capital, all this symbolic currency that we had thrown towards grass-fed, we're taking some of that back and we're checking it back towards grains. I think that itself is fascinating.
So the grass makes them gassier.
apparently gassier. They generate more methane. And it makes a
and
huge
it's not just
difference.
it's not just coming out the back end, it's
not
coming
just
out the
coming
front
out the
end
back
too.
end, yeah.
And this is also kind of something that is increasing in awareness, is that the actual belching or burping that takes place as the cow is digesting is actually emitting methane as well.
Okay. I'm suddenly all of a sudden not thrilled that we are recording this before lunchtime. But okay, so I really want to talk about what's going on here. So we have been, I won't say it's fair. Were we fed a line, or were we just uninformed? Like, what was happening here that for so long, like the last decade, grass-fed, grass-fed, grass-fed? And how are we going to shift the narrative if that's actually not the value that we're trying to align with?
Yeah, and I should clarify. There is a reason why the grass-fed narrative has such amount of symbolic capital with it, because there is truth to the fact that, for example, a cut of steak that was grass-fed just tastes different. It just tastes different. And if you generally speaking, if you ask a gourmet chef, they will say grass-fed is better. It just tastes better. It has more complexity to it. So there is reason behind it. But now that we put this in the context of environment and sustainability, suddenly we're realizing, hey, maybe we do need to make a bit of a compromise on this supposed improvement in flavor in order to make a significant dent on the environment. I think that's what's interesting. I mean, and let's even take a step further back. First of all, who knew that who knew that the cow's burp or fart was actually contributing to methane gas production? This itself it just blows my mind as a consumer.
Mm-hmm. What about the adjacent values? Because we've talked about this in previous episodes, and I still love it, so I'll keep drawing on it because I think it'll help people like me who are not in your world understand the notion of that solar system, where if the sun is the main meaning that we're looking at, and then we have all these other planets that are orbiting around, and some of them are growing and shrinking in size and affecting the orbit overall. If we look at the cow, the grass-fed or grain-fed cow, as the sun, the thing that our consumer is gravitating towards for one reason or another, what are the other things that consumer is thinking about as well? Like, can we draw a picture of who that person is?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it through the lens of that solar system, a majority of the stuff still, so all the planets closest to the sun, still are about flavor, they're about cooking, they're about animal welfare, all of that other stuff. Stuff about methane at the moment, it's just at the edge of that contextual boundary, just at the edge of that solar system. And I know I'm butchering physics here, but what we're now seeing is that planet on the edge of that solar system is racing towards the sun. And it's racing at a hefty pace. That's what's interesting. So the knowledge is growing of the consumer around this.
Think about like the time right before we had any idea what cage-free meant for chickens, right? Like there was a time where, that became a marker of a variety of different things. It became a marker of social capital from the standpoint of caring about the welfare of the animal. Now put that in the context of this, and now we're the animal that's actually at risk, which is kind of interesting and funny. So now what does this mean as we start to think about, kind of the role of beef and beef production? What happens when certain companies start to incorporate technologies that are actually taking a foot forward in reducing the amount of methane that is starting to kind of, flow out? There's these things called burp bibs that have been developed where, they have masks that the cows wear, which capture the methane as it basically is expunged from a burp. So as this becomes more and more kind of dominant in kind of culture and more people become aware of it, does this shape a new benefit? Does this shape a new reason to believe in a brand or a product because they are ahead of the curve in solving for this problem, which separates them from all the other beef products that are on the market? So
I'm going to start paying $27.99 for a free-range, free-run, grass-fed chicken, and then I'm going to pay $54.99 for a fart-free box of hamburgers.
I think you've just nailed the package design moniker right there.
These hamburgers are
fart-free hamburgers. There's going to be a lot of very disappointed moms, though, that is going to be sitting around the table going, these burgers don't work. Everybody's still farting.
That's right. I think, Aaron, the key here is where we're headed toward. And this is already happening from a technology standpoint. We're headed towards carbon neutral farms. Right? That's really what's happening here. And generally, farms have been thinking about this in terms of the technologies they use. Obviously, the most obvious thing is use of energy, right? Use of electricity, energy, use of, whether it's diesel on the farm or whatever else, other forms of fuel. But now we're also talking about methane production. So the reason why this is very interesting is because this is the beauty of culture. Two things can occur simultaneously and be seemingly contradictory, right? So in the same way that plant-based alternatives are growing, so are all of these solutions around traditional proteins, right? So we can clearly see that beef ain't going anywhere. I'm sorry to all the vegans out there and the activists
100%.
out there, but it's not going anywhere. That's just culture. This is not my opinion. This is culture that we're studying and examining. And what we're seeing is innovative solutions that are starting to solve some of the problems along the way.
This is fascinating to me. So one final question to wrap this up. How are we seeing this shift impact at the household level? I'm looking out at my backyard right now. We've just finally dug our composter in. Is this something that's hitting home yet?
100%. And in fact, composting is actually the most direct connection, because we actually saw a whole, what we call a microculture, a whole planet system of planets around this whole notion of methane that revolves around reducing waste. And this is something the consumer can really apply in their day-to-day lives, right? Because they can build their own composting systems in their homes, depending on where they live and how much space they have. And what we're seeing is the same notion of composting applied to the farm, where it's a sustainable way to deal with, for example, cow manure. Or to compost other forms of farm waste, whether it's grass or hay clippings or wood chips or food waste, right?
Yeah.
It's a very direct relationship there in terms of what I do in my home and what the farm does, because it's pretty much the same thing in a way.
Yeah.
Fascinating. I can't wait to see how this all plays out on the marketplace. I think it's going to be faster than we realize. I give it three or 4 years, right? You think?
100%. Maybe even less. Yeah.
All right. I'm here for the fart-free burgers. I'm here
Let's
for
do it.
that. All right.
I'm going to get the graphic designers working on a logo for Fart Free Burgers right now.
Let's do it. We'll put it in the show notes. Brilliant. That's it for this episode of Why Meaning Matters. If you have a comment about the show or you'd like to ask a question, please feel free to reach out at our email, hello@storystudionetwork.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and give us a rating on Apple Podcasts if you so desire, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Why Meaning Matters with Ujwal Arkulgud, Jason Partridge, and your host, Aaron Trafford.
Inconceivable! You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Why Meaning Matters is produced for Motive Base and the Story Studio Network by Eye Contact Productions.